Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Carlson, and I welcome you to Community at the Practitioner's Table, where our vision is to create an online community around yoga and make it more accessible through honest and casual conversation. Consider this a place where we will break down barriers through exploring some common misperceptions of yoga. Basically, what we're doing is just talking about all the stuff, the shit, getting down to the nitty gritty of things in yoga that is not shared in your typical Western yoga classes. There's a space for all to share their experience, ask questions, and deepen their relationship with the practice, and hopefully with one another as mentors and community members. Every episode is a main dish, but consider it a potluck. Bring your questions, bring your comments, your experiences, and every episode we will share those, talk about those, as well as our main topics, our main dishes of each episode. So today with me is my mentor, Miss Kim Combs. We are doing this podcast together. Thanks for being here, Kim. Really excited. And we're just going to open up with why we're doing this. Why are you doing this podcast, Miss Kim? And what is your background with yoga?
Jessie, thank you. I'm doing this podcast because just like you, it's for the love of yoga and for the love of community. And it's because yoga is such a universal thing, and it's so part of the collective, and at the same time so individually based, because no body is the same and no filter is the same, and nobody's life experiences are the same, that I felt like your inspiration around creating a podcast, was a perfect avenue to be able to break down those common misperceptions and really bring the core values of yoga back, so that people that maybe I've always wanted to dip into it, could feel more confident knowing what the truth is behind this ancient lineage of health and wellness, because yoga is a science and an art and philosophy. It's so much more than just the postures, which we'll get into, right, over the course of the next couple of weeks working together and just kind of talking about it. So that's why I'm here, because you, lovely lady, asked me to be a part of this. And I think it's through our connection and love of yoga and the things that we do together that I think this podcast just naturally birthed itself. So I'm happy to be a part of it. Yeah. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Give us a little ditty background of your experience of yoga, whatever comes to mind.
Sure. Gosh, I came kicking and screaming into yoga. I'm a Generation X kid, so I was raised in the snowboarding industry and the downhill mountain biking industry, and I was pretty good at it. But I was also really good at taking chances and, putting my body in danger. So I actually had been avoiding the process of yoga, the breakdown of what yoga could offer you, probably my whole life. So I blew my knee out in, I don't know, I can't say what year it was, 2000 something, the early 2000s, 2002, 2003, somewhere along there, 2004. And when I blew my knee out snowboarding, I just knew right away, I'm like, all right, you can no longer sustain the type of personality complex, like what was driving me. And so I stumbled upon a yoga class, and the yoga teacher had enough of the true concepts of yoga to grab me on the very first class. And I thought, wow. And to be honest with you, the one feature that stuck out in my mind that allowed me to surrender and basically cry myself through an entire year of scar tissue, post-surgery rehab, was the fact that God was invited into the room, and that it wasn't separate from exercise, and that finally I could embrace my spirit and be athletic and healthy. I was never raised in a traditional home of religion or any of those types of paradigms. So yoga kind of gave me something that I'd always been hoping for. And I just knew that I had to kind of continue to investigate. And it was because of the teacher. It was because of the depth of the human that was holding the room. And so over the course of, what are we in 2023, I've been studying the Ashtanga path for like 19 or 20 years, right? Of trying to get to that inner core and trying to understand why I was so hungry for more information. If that teacher didn't have that depth, right, I wouldn't have been so inspired. And so bouncing in and out of some of these Ashtanga versus Vinyasa versus this and that versus all of this, I just felt like, this podcast is necessary. And so that's a little bit of my backstory. Yeah, I stuck to the Ashtanga path because it held most of the science and the philosophy and the art. I do love a good Vinyasa class, but my soul needs like the intensity and the depth of like the full comprehension of yoga. I needed to be remembered of who I truly was. So I've been sticking with the Ashtanga path ever since. And so that's been a real blessing for me. Yeah. Thank you. And then I met you, right? I don't know when we met because the years fly by, but it's going within this decade, right?
2015.
20, wow.
I know.
Yeah, and then just having somebody like yourself who's so hungry for the truth, and you were a generation behind me, generation or two. I am going to be 50 this week. The yoga had changed so much. I think it was a lot sweeter when I started because it was less popular. So the original Amrita, the nectar, was still really juicy. And it hadn't exploded and blown up to the degree that it was when you discovered yoga. So your relationship with me was a beautiful contrast. And it was it was telling that your age group, what I mean, needed, so or maybe the world needed to return to a little bit more of the deeper, more truthful concepts of yoga, what its originality was. So yeah.
Beautiful.
I still practice. I practiced this morning.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Sure. How about yourself? Tell
Yeah.
me your backstory.
Right. Story time. So I found yoga when I was a teenager, actually through P90X workout video, kind of industry situation. And I just remember, I think what stuck out to me was the vinyasas were always the sun salutations. I really liked the rigidity and how consistent it was in that particular video. And then I used books. My sister had a children's yoga book, and so I practiced all the postures. It had a full sun salutation from start to finish, and then did a few videos here and there, and then I jumped immediately into teaching. I did not have my certification, but it was a small town, Redding, California. No one really needs that, so I kind of got into some gyms, and then when I finally moved to the Bay and met you, that's when I needed yoga the most, but I wasn't willing to go do it. Countless times you invited me to your classes and all these things, and I just wasn't ready for the truth. I wanted it, I was hungry for it, but it was the self-commitment to see myself and peel back my own layers. I wasn't ready for that yet, and then I just did it. And I have to say that out of all the various yoga types that I teach, or I have taught, or I have done, I am with you. Ashtanga, similarly, the Hatha primary series, these more, I don't want to say rigid, because I don't think it is rigid anymore, but it's consistent, the same postures every time. I really enjoy those types of practices because I know what's coming next, so I can focus on the deeper layers of my tissue, of am I breathing? 5 deep breaths and finding that drishti. These types of things. Where's my mind going? What am I crying about today? So I do have to say that, I'm here because we started from, me learning from you, and it's going to continue to be that way. But I think this is a way for me to collaborate with one of my mentors and continue to yoke the nectar of what yoga is for myself. And I got really clear. I think you even asked me this in one of our sessions, is why do I teach yoga? Why am I doing yoga? And it's purely for myself, to find my own truth and the truth, and I'm glad that we're here together to do this, to offer an online community, to get to know other people around the world who maybe don't know where to start, but they know there's something deeper to yoga than just the vinyasa class or the power class with weights or the boom boom music, whatever it is. But a space where we can all just kind of discover and dig in to these truths, these ideas, this art, this athletic exercise, whatever you want to call it, right? So
Right.
yeah, that's kind of my story. Just, I'm still a student, always will be. That's why I'm here. That's what we're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Always a student, the student of life. And so, like, you mentioned the word yoke. So, like, why would you say that? And how does that relate to yoga?
Oh, didn't you know that's like one of the root words, I think, of yoga, to yoke, to yoke the stuff.
What do you do when you yoke? You mix, right?
Yes.
And when we think of an egg, you have the yema, the center, and you have the whites, right?
Right.
So we've got this already duality of polarity happening within an egg, right? And so I will just add on to my question, but yoga means union or to yoke or to mix. There's a few other adjectives that sort of embrace the emotion behind the word, because we'll realize that in Sanskrit, the words are in the same thing in other languages, the few that I do speak. There's a feeling behind words that we will have to attach multiple adjectives to. But yeah, yoga is to yoke and to mix and to blend and to, alchemize, right? Shift the compartments or the composure or the composition of the whatever it is, whether it's an egg or a human.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And I think, just to maybe use that word in context to like why we're here in this vision and what we have going on. It is, yoga is, I find it to be a rather triggering experience for me. I think the last 5 yoga classes, I've cried maybe 5 out of those 2 times that I've taken, because I'm just currently taking yoga classes. I think when I sit in posture, I get internal, like heat up physically, but then my mind starts to race. And then once I'm quieting down, then I'm like, oh, I'm going to cry. Like I feel so triggered. It is yoking, mixing, churning. Can we just be honest? Like working on our shit is really triggering. And I think that's why it's so important to have a community where we can hold space for others and we can all guide each other through this experience, because I think we can't do it alone. We can take our practices, our physical practices, we are doing that alone, whether you're in a class or at home doing it by yourself. That is an individual. You used to say it's an individual activity, not a team sport. I remember that still. It's so true.
Individualized path to self-realization. It is an inside job. It's an inside job. Yeah.
It is. And, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned, not just through taking yoga classes from you or others, but I have, other mentors for other things in my life that it's like, you cannot do this alone. And, there's the teacher student aspect, and then also just the guidance and wisdoms you get from other people's experiences in this space. And that's, I think, what we're also looking to create, to just because, well, I mean, being someone could be a practitioner of yoga for 50 years, but I don't think we're ever done learning, or, like yoga changes constantly too within society. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there.
One thing I heard you mention was the word triggering. And so again, I want to speak to the generations and the different eras of things. So like, yeah, trauma and the word triggering and all these buzzwords that I'm maybe 20 something years older than you. I just want to put out there as well, back in the day, triggering wasn't a word that we use. We used to allow it to emerge. And so what people are scared to feel now, and they call it triggering, brings up fear, but really the idea is that's what it's supposed to do. Those twists are supposed to expunge and wring you out. The breath mixed with the drishti is supposed to light the internal flame. You do get heated up in order to detoxify or uncover yourself. So the goal is to allow those things to boil up. And again, hence the podcast, to be able to talk about these things. A couple decades ago, we didn't talk about how triggering yoga was. We did talk about how, see, it's different. Like I said, it's a little bit sweeter back then. So the sutras, if you found a good class, the sutras were invited into the room. And then we I'm just stating my opinion, we went through a phase where the only English speakers didn't want any of that. They just wanted the exercise, right? And then we're in this new era of triggers and emotions and trying to claim our authenticity. And I just want to weave back in like that the triggering is a heavy word. It's like if we could find another adjective to add in, because as we'll learn through this podcast, over the series of getting together, when we learn the Sanskrit language of yoga, they only give generalized statements about what the word means, or they'll have different spokes that will lead you to the definition of the word. But there's most of the time, right, there's not just one answer for it. And so when we think about triggering, I just want to encourage the community to recognize that is a buzzword of our current time. And at the same time, it may be triggering, but we are there to bubble it up and out so that we can remember who we truly are, right? Because when we do, right, ta-da, drashtuhu swarupe bashtanam, right, ta-da, there we are. And a little bit of a clearer vision. And again, like, less polarized between the yolk of the egg versus the white of the egg. We're able to mix and exist with the triggers, with the tears, and we show up to the mat to unfurl that so we can be released of that and liberated. And eventually we will learn in the podcast as well, that this philosophy ends up circling right back around on itself, and it boils back to just being conscious in the process. And so again, going back to my backstory, that was what was the hook for me. I'm like, yes, finally we can talk about this shit and actually let it be in the room. And there is this thing called yoga that allows me to address my physicality, address my personality complex, finally talk about God openly and not dogmatically, right? And so that's a little bit about what I wanted to share, and just also bring to the community before we've got just a little bit of time and we want to leave time to close up. And I know we want to ask the community, their questions and their comments, but that's just something I wanted to share right off the bat about, what is this community at the practitioners table? What's the potluck about? It's like, yeah, this is it, really bring your dish and we can, rework the recipe of the word trigger. We can really add in some other things, or soften it with some white wine sauce, or, add a little extra herbs to kind of gather some flavor. So yeah, that's about it.
I love it. I love it. Excuse the venue change. My computer is almost dying, so my bad. But no, I love it. And I really appreciate you reworking that word and providing clarity, and because you're right. I think that word does bring in fear, and it is associated with trauma and fear of feeling and all this stuff, all the things that we address in yoga. But so I think it's really good that it really is just lighting us up is all,
And being able to allow all of that in the room. I mean, that's a good practice right there, and when I have a student cry in a yoga class, I know I've done a good job, because I've cracked the ice shield or something, and the juice right there is, how do you approach that practitioner at the end of the class? How do you hold that space for them? And that will require, that also ensues a little bit of community there, that they will return and feel safe. Because don't get me wrong, I think it is intimidating in the way that the West has turned it into, all about postures. And we'll get to the ugly side of the tradition as well. This sort of patriarchal, do you get a posture? Do you don't? How far do you get to go? Are you better because you're further on the series? Are you better because because your joints are naturally open and you can get all those binds? Does that make you more profound? I'm not sure. So those are the things we get to really hash out here on this podcast in a loving way. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited. I look forward to it. I really do. And I'm really grateful and excited to share this space, not only with you, but with others, and to just see what happens and what we create, what we collectively create, not just you and I, but what every one of us creates, So,
Right.
I'm excited to hit these topics and dig in deep. So.
Right, absolutely. And speaking of topics, I think we have, I think we had put in our notes just a little bit of like, here's that list, curiosity, enjoyment of study, personal unwinding, understanding into psyche, an avenue to be closer to God, that commitment to yourself, right?
Yeah.
Then that teacher-student relationship, because we can't do this alone. We really do need to forge a path together. And the irony of the egoic self, right, will separate us from community. And so you might think that your ego is protecting you for something, but no matter what, it is what it is. And so being able to let down those barriers, especially the ego that says that I'm better or worse than someone, and to recognize, we are the ones we've been waiting for. And a rising tide will lift other ships. So when we work on ourselves, we work on the world. And so it really becomes that inside job. And again, that's why you and I love the Ashtanga path, because it is about no music, no Lululemon pants, same time, next day, the postures allow you to drop in. And the actual foundation of yoga is breath, eye gaze. So it's pranayama, drishti, and then these postures, the asanas. But, as you and I both know, some of the moral codes of yoga, the postures are third on the list. They're not even up there. It's like, you must do the postures. You must breathe and understand and take these other avenues. But but the issues are in the tissues,
Always.
You will grow further when you are engaged in your body. So there's that interesting, like, yolk, it's beautiful the way it is as a fried egg, and it's also really good scrambled. So I look forward to what's coming up for us next.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yep.
What is next? What are we looking at?
We're just gonna get there.
We want to close under 30 minutes, right? We want to keep these short and sweet. We also encourage, the community to, tell me what you're thinking.
So we're gonna next week we're gonna jump right into the sutra with Sutra 1-1.
What is a sutra? What is that?
A sutra? It's a simple verse. It's a one-liner. I don't remember.
I will tell you,
Translation.
su
Yeah.
and tra.
Right.
So Sanskrit runs on these little sounds like yam, bam, ram, lam, om, shrim, cream, reem. Okay. And sutra is broken into two little micro meanings. It's to link together. So we'll sew these one line random statements that you can take one line and spend your whole life talking about it. And you realize that one statement kind of encompasses every other aspect of these sacred texts that were downloaded into people during an era, right? So we had the era that I grew up in yoga, and then we just talked about the triggering aspect, and there's different eras of things. But sutra is the word linking together in order to transcend. And so that's these one line statements that are collected into books, which are called religious texts. You and I know best the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, because that is where the Ashtanga path was fertilized from. There is the Bhagavad Gita and all the Upanishads and all of that, but we're just going to talk about what we know and what we've experienced in our body, right?
Right.
And so next week we'll talk about the sutra, and the sutra are these philosophical statements that actually bring comprehension and context into the yogic path, which seemingly feels very physical most of the time, but the sutra allow the head and the body to mix together, right?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. So we're going to talk about Sutra 1.1 next week. And since I'll be posting, we're filming Monday and also posting Monday. So I don't think we'll have any comments or questions just yet, but we'll also spend the second half of every episode addressing questions or comments or acknowledging experiences of viewers. So that's what we have. That's what we got going on.
Love it. Yes. Where do they post? I'm not the techie here. You're the techie, remember? I grew up without a cell phone.
Yeah. So friends, you can post directly in the comments that will be under this video. I will link our channel's email address as well. If you want to send us a little blurb or question or comment or story, you can email us. And then I think I don't even remember what that email address is. Give me 1 second. I should look because I need to start saying it here. Give me one moment. We have practitionerstable@gmail.com. That's what it is. Okay. So you can email us at practitionerstable@gmail.com. Questions, comments, or post down below. That's what I got.
You have an email? That's amazing.
We do. So, yeah. And that's what we have here.
Well, I just thank you for creating this little resource for us. When you love something, you always want to talk about it. And I'm already thinking about the things I didn't say. And I just look forward to the opportunity to continue to kind of like tether out and unravel and unfurl just the expression of who we are, in hopes that it makes the world a better place, and that we can rise the tide of other ships. So
beautiful. I love it. Same. Thank you for being here and embarking on this journey with me. And yeah, kind of definitely inspiring me to step forth and, head out on this journey with everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we should end with a Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, and just remember that, Shanti is the word for peace. And so Om is a primordial sound, right? We can start to break these down over time if people have questions about it. But the three Shantis for me was always such a beautiful thing. It parallels so many other spiritual truths, but peace for me, peace for you, and then peace for thee, right? So I just would love it if we just placed our hands together and was
Yeah.
able to close class every time with just a general and we don't need to sing, doesn't need to be profound. But also, we offer this out to the world and the community that, Om Shanti 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 is like, the peace in me sees the peace in you, and the peace in you sees the peace in Jessie, and the peace in Jessie sees the peace in the world, and vice versa. So yeah, I thank you, young dear one, for creating this opportunity to kind of live in spiritual bliss, to be able to express that. So
Definitely. Thank you. Yes, my pleasure. Let's do it.
yeah.
Take it away.
Oh, I'm just gonna say it. I don't have my microphone on. We're not gonna do anything special today, but it's just a dear deep bow, like Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Mhm.
Thank you for this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Yeah. The more we say that and practice being in that energy, that emotes out into the world, and so we can continue just to help to raise the vibration or hold steady the vibration of the light in this really intense world, that can seem dark at times.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
That's how we're going to close every time.
All right. I look forward to hearing comments, and
Yes.
let me know what to do next, Jessie.
I will. I will. Yeah, no, definitely, friends, just comment, post down below, or email us. And remember, it's potluck. Your contributions are, I don't want to say you have to, but they're essential. Let's participate. Let's create this community and get it going.
They're part of the world
Yeah.
buffet.
Yes, there we go. Let's hear them. So awesome. All right, Miss Kim, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here and doing this with me. I will see you next week.
Sounds good.
Sutra 1-1. And friends, I hope to hear from you super soon. So we'll see you next time. All right.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.